So have you ever wondered how much the average person has saved and invested by every single age, along with what percentage of your income you should be looking to allocate in order to be able to save and invest in order to be able to achieve your financial goals? Well, in today's video I'm going to be answering this common question by exploring what some of the experts say on how much you should have both saved and invest at the age of 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60, along with how you can also achieve some of these milestones throughout the course of your life. Now, I wanted to share this data just as a benchmarking exercise. Perhaps it will give you a little bit of an indication as to kind of where you need to cut back, perhaps spend a little bit less, or on the flip side, perhaps try and look to earn a little bit more income in order to achieve your personal financial goals. But let me just say this, the data is simply just numbers on a page, and it obviously doesn't take into consideration your own personal circumstances for every age category as well as every income level as well. Nor does it take into consideration your own personal individual goals, which may vastly differ to perhaps the bottom percentile of investors and the top percentile of investors. So let's just take a very brief look at the numbers, and then I think what's probably best to focus on is the practical example that you can potentially work towards and use the methodology and the framework in order to calculate how much you personally need by every single age in order to achieve your own personal investment goal, which, remember, is personal to you. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, kick back, relax, grab some popcorn, smash the like button as well, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And with that being said, let's begin. So firstly, let's take a very quick look at the median savings rate over here in the UK, which essentially means, based on the numbers I'm about to show you guys, 50% of people have saved less and 50% of people have saved more. And these are your income after tax savings. It doesn't account for any kind of employee contributions to a pension pot, nor the house in which you own. It covers off all of the liquid money in which you have because you simply can't eat bricks. But what's clear to see based on these numbers that until the age of about 35, 50% of people are saving absolutely nothing, minus 1.3% in fact. And that is a pretty shocking statistic. Now don't get me wrong, I'm certainly not expecting any toddlers out there to be absolutely balling out, and the reality is most people don't truly get started out in life until they at least hit their early 20s. But having said that, literally having nothing saved by the age of 35 is still quite concerning. But if you're anything like me in your mid-20s, you've probably not long finished university and you've probably got quite a lot of expenses, because the first thing that I did once I'd secured a job was actually go and buy a car and get a loan for that car in order to provide me with a reliable motor in order to be able to commute to work. And then on top of that, I then had to start paying back my student loan along with the bills and mortgage for the house in which I live in too. When you account for just those four things, which are your typical expenses, you can probably understand why the savings rate is so low. Because in my opinion anyway, unless you've got the bank of mom and dad in order to be able to help you out, between the ages of 20 and 30 are probably the hardest financially. It's where you earn the least amount of money but have to fork out what I'm going to call as a lot of first time expenses. But then once you surpass that kind of mid-30s age bracket, everything becomes a little bit more healthy. I guess as you progress throughout your career and your income rises, it then puts you in a position to be able to save a little bit more money, which we can see by looking at the age ranges between 35 right the way up to 75, which is an average of about a 10% savings rate. But still, 50% of people are saving less than 10% of their income, whilst the other 50% are saving more than 10% of their income, which does seem pretty plausible to me. But what about total wealth? Well, this study defines it as the value of financial assets held, including formal investments, which include your current or savings account, investment vehicles such as an ISA, endowments, and stocks and shares, along with informal savings too. And well, according to these numbers, the average total wealth of an individual aged between 20 to 29 years old is between £2,600 and £3,800, which if you've got a few grand already invested into a stocks and shares ISA during your 20s, then I guess you're starting off on the right path and certainly heading in the right direction. But by the time you start to hit your 30s and beyond, those numbers start to significantly jump, until bizarrely enough you hit your mid-40s and then the average net wealth declines. And that is where I do have a little bit of an issue with these numbers, because they are certainly subjective, and as a result they might not be all that good in terms of looking at them for a benchmark, because there could have just been some mega rich people in the 40 to 44 age category which could have pushed these numbers up to an extremely high level. You're always going to get those top 0.1% of earners who completely skew the numbers for the rest of us. It's like the top 1% of earners in the world right now account for something ridiculous ridiculous like 45.8% of the total world's wealth. Whilst on the other end of the spectrum, the bottom 55% of earners, so over half of the world's population, only actually account for 1% of the world's wealth. So the wealth disparity is massive, and therefore looking at average numbers probably isn't the best thing to do. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the median level of wealth instead, which has your 20 to 24 year olds with a net wealth of just £200, but your 65 plus age range having 25,700. Now, anything I've ever learned about finance certainly suggests to me that only having 25 grand at the age of 65 is nowhere near enough for you to be able to live off during retirement. If you think about it, it's less than 1 year of the average UK salary saved up. So only having that much in net wealth probably won't last you too much more than 12 months during retirement. But I guess what's more concerning to me, driven by the fact that these are the median numbers, is the fact that there are 50% of people who actually have a net wealth less than £25,000 in the 65 plus age bracket, which certainly shows to me that we simply don't do a good enough job in society talking about finances and money. There clearly isn't enough focus on financial education going on in schools because they're too busy teaching kids how to calculate the circumference of a circle instead. And as a result, the system certainly prevents a hell of a lot of people actually going on to achieve their financial goals. However, I'm certainly not one to make excuses, so now let's talk about a little bit of a framework which you can do at home on your own in order to calculate how you can actually achieve your financial goals and find out what targets you actually need to aim towards at every single age in order to be able to reach those goals in which you actually have. So let's start off with defining your desired level of income. Now, of course, those numbers are going to be personable to you, but a study done by Which actually said that roughly about £26,000 would provide you a comfortable level of household income, and is around the midpoint of the two extremes versus just having the bare essentials versus a luxury lifestyle during retirement. But of course, the first thing to think about is that £26,000 today won't be the equivalent to £26,000 worth of purchasing power in 30 or 40 years time when you guys come to retire. So because of that, we have to account for something called inflation. So let's assume you're 25 years old today and you have the desired comfortable level of retirement goal of £26,000 today. But let's say you plan to retire in 30 years from now at the age of 55, you will actually need, when accounting for inflation, an income of £55,499. So the question is, how do you end up with that level of income which you can draw from your investment portfolio in the year 2052? Well, if we apply the rule of 4%, which is just a practical rule of thumb that many retirees look for in order to be able to calculate how much they can actually draw down on their investment portfolio every single year. Now, when calculating those numbers, it shows us that we actually need an investment pot to the value of £1,387,475 in order for you to be able to draw down that £55,000 per year. So the next question is, how exactly do you arrive at a £1.4 million investment portfolio within the space of 30 years? And how much do you need at every single age in that investment portfolio in order to be able to ensure that you get there? Well, if we start at £0, if you can actually achieve an average annual rate of return of about 8% per year, which is just your typical average in the stock market, over 30 years you'll need to invest exactly £731.50 per month, increasing for inflation at 2.5% per year in order to be able to achieve that overall investment target of £1,387,475. But how much would you actually need at every single age in order to be able to achieve that figure? Well, if you start out at 25, of course, during month one you'll have a grand total of £731.50. But by the time you're 26, it'll be £9,100, 27, £19,000, 28, 30 grand, 29, 42 grand, by age 30, 56 grand, by age 40, 291 grand, by age 50, 869 grand, and by age 55, the grand total of 1.38 million. Now, the bigger the numbers, the more daunting and perhaps unachievable it feels. But what you do have to remember is that the power of compounding actually does most of the work for you. And actually over 1 million of the 1.38 million comes from just the interest on the portfolio alone. That's nearly 3/4 of the total end goal of your investment portfolio that you don't really even need to have to worry about. All you really need to focus on is that 731 quid per month, and if you can increase it every single year with inflation, then you should be absolutely winning. And if you've got an employer which is contributing to a pension pot and you're able to do the £731 per month on your own, then you're certainly heading for a home run in retirement. But But if these numbers don't align to your goals, then pause the video here and go through this checklist in order to be able to methodically work out what your end investment goal is, and then be sure to let me know what that is down in the comment section below. So with that said, guys, if you did find this video useful, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. But before you go, if you do want to learn a little bit more about what actually makes a successful investor, be sure to click on this video here. With that being said, I'll see you over in the next video.